So this is Diane Barrett with Wendy Averill. This is the BE collection. This is April 27th, 2021. So thank you, Wendy, for being here and being part of this. So I'd like to start off by asking you, what occupations have you participated in as a career?
Well, primarily teaching. I taught 2nd through 6th grade, and the other was photographing thoroughbred racehorses professionally, which was loads of fun. And teaching too is, every moment is different than any other moment.
So I saw that photograph of you with that humongous lens.
Oh,
I
didn't even have
impressive
extra
just to be able
stuff
to
on
carry
it.
that around.
That's the one I use, particularly on the track is the one that I need. And I'll be way up in the grandstand and can put some extenders on that. And it's really some amazing photographs I can get. It's a great camera.
So where were you born?
I was born in Oak Park, Illinois. My family lived in Hinsdale. We came out to California in 1946. My dad, in his brilliance, he was a very high-tech advertising executive, very well known, and did a lot of stuff. But he was working for other people, and he wanted to go and be able to go into businesses and sell advertising space himself. And so he said, I'm going to move to California. And they said, oh, no, you've got to be in Chicago or New York or San Francisco. I said, no, LA. He researched it. We came out to California in 1946, and I've been here ever since. I did go to college in Illinois for 4 years, and then my master's out here at USC. But lived in Altadena, and I taught in Altadena for many years and loved it. Pasadena, Altadena area is an incredible place.
Okay.
I went to a 4-year Christian Science college, was raised in Christian Science, and I was born with crossed eyes. Well, in Christian Science, whatever is wrong with you is wrong with your thinking. You're thinking incorrectly. And I was born,
you look fine now.
Yeah, I have had surgery twice.
Oh, I see.
And
All
it
right.
could have been done as a kid. I waited until my mother died until I had the surgery. Yeah.
Did you then come to California after college?
I came back to California after college and tried to figure out where I wanted to go. I went into teaching, and there were 4 people who were a major impact in my life. And one of them was the head of the education department at Principia.
How old were you when you had surgery?
First surgery, I was 30, it was 1978, so I would have been 36.
So you lived that way quite a while.
Oh, Lord, yeah, exactly. The hard part in teaching is you have to look at kids when you talk to them. Mm-hmm. And they had no idea where I was looking. And so I had to learn kids' names really, really fast to be able to call the child by name. And so it was very difficult. And then a few years ago, one eye started going back again. It made it really hard for walking, because what happened is I used one eye for close and one eye for distance. And then all of a sudden they started getting all screwy about 4 or 5 years ago. And so I went and had surgery again. And back we are. Here we are.
They look great. So
it was a great help to get the surgery done, but it impacted me profoundly. My mother realized after meeting Jinx Spears, who was with who created the Lesbian News, and Jinx was a very, very obvious lesbian. Dyed straw white, almost white colored hair, wore black leathers with red lining on them, went around in boots everywhere. When some mother met her, but oh my God. In 1970, she said, I'd like to have this. In fact, that's my mother's picture right up there in the background. And then the other little one, oh no, that's Mary Lisa. There's another really cute. Anyway, she was gorgeous. Mm-hmm. And but very Christian Science and very devout and very conservative. But so when Mother met Jinx, 1970, she said, I'd like to have you come up and visit. Come on Idlewild for the weekend. I just like to, this way you and I could have a little talk. I said, Jinx, here it comes. So I drove up there, and we did idle chit chat. The sky is so pretty up here, that kind of stuff. And finally, we were driving on one of the main streets in Idlewild. Mother pulls over, slams the brake, pulls over to the side of the road into the dirt, looks at me and says, Wendy, are you a lesbian? And I said, hesitated a second and said, yes, because I was surprised. Yes, Mother, I am. She said, you could be anything but not that. You could be a murderer, a drug addict, child molester, murderer, robber, drug addict, or child molester, anything but not that. And she
Not
burst into
molester.
tears. Now, here's what's nice. Jinx and I were together then, and she really was somebody who altered she's one of the 4 people in my life who really changed my life. And when I got down to Culver City, which is where we live, I came in just distraught because I had to stay the whole weekend with Mother and have, a discussion about nothing after having.
What was your response to that?
What, Jinx, to my mom, you mean?
Was that before or after she met Jinx Spears?
That was it was after she met Jinx.
Right.
When she met Jinx, she felt she needed to have this little conversation with me, which she did. So I continued to spend the rest of the weekend because I was working and had to get back to school on Monday, and drove back down to Culver City. And I said, Jinx, the most awful thing has just happened. Mother has equated me. And I told her what had happened, that robber, murdered, drug addict, and child molester. And he said, Jinx looked at me and she said, you're still the same person your mother always knew. She has only one new piece of information about you. And I have
Who said that to you?
Jinx did. Now, this is 1970. This is a year after Stonewall. People didn't think those kinds of things.
That was a great statement, though.
Well, but this was Jinx.
Right.
In fact, even today, Jinx died 3 years ago. And I had a really difficult decision to make a couple weeks ago. And Mary Lee turns to me, and Mary Lee is my wife. Mary Lee says, what would Jinx do? She said, and I told her what I thought Jinx would say. And she said, well, you listened to her ideas. And what it was exactly what I was thinking. So I thought, okay, that validates it. So that was important.
She's always on your committee.
Yeah. And so it just worked out really, really well. Jinx, the head of the education department, was one of the people who profoundly affected me. And, to be the one person that everybody in school adored. Peg Rotz was her name. She had her PhD from the University of Chicago in like the 1950s. Women didn't do that then.
That's right.
And so she went and taught education at Principia. And right off, she and her husband took me under their wing. And it made me think, this is the first time in my life I thought anybody thought I was important, ever. What
point in your life did you feel that you were attracted to women and you might be a little bit
that's
different?
kind of another story, because what happened, I never had any idea that I was. I taught 2 years up in Ventura, and I taught 4th grade up there. And that was where I taught the migrant workers and oil fields workers' kids. And then I came down to work in Pasadena for 1 year. And that was the second person major in my life. And that was my principal. And somehow or other, he decided I was a really good teacher. And he turns out he was right.
You still weren't out as a lesbian.
Not at all. Not at all.
Even to yourself.
So first 2 years I taught in Ventura. Next year I taught in Pasadena. Then the 4th year I went and worked with Peg for a year. And then I wanted to come back to Altadena because his principal was so good. I'm into horse racing, and it's not horse racing because of gambling. I almost don't even gamble, but I love the horses. When I was little, I would beg Mother, oh, please drive this way. I know it's out of the way, but please drive this way because there's a horse there. I want to just look at it. And we drive by, and that's the way it was. When I had that year at Unifon, Peg, we would go into St. Louis to I can't remember the hotel now, to have her hair done. And I had my hair dyed in those days and things like that. And Peg handed me, it was one of the women's magazines. I don't know which one it was, but handed it to me and said, here, read this article, see what you think. It was called The Gay Life. So I read it, and she said, what do you think of it? I think she suspected I was a lesbian. And so I read this article.
Well, how about you? At that point, did you suspect you might be?
No, not the slightest. Not even remotest. So I read this article, and she said, what do you think of it? I said, I didn't understand a word of it. I don't know anything about that. Yeah. And so I didn't have any idea. Now, shortly thereafter, a woman who had married a very wealthy benefactor at Principia came over and made a run at me, only I didn't realize that was what was happening. And we got together. She moved to California. We ended up living like a year and a half, 2 years. And then after that, I met Jinx. So I might add, the woman had an affair with somebody else while we were in a relationship. And so that ended that. And then I met Jinx. Did
you have a relationship with this woman?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
But
so that was your first?
That was my first relationship. But anyway, so then along came Jinx. And so.
Along came who?
Along came
Jinx.
And in the meantime, I'm teaching all this time. I'm teaching now in Pasadena. It's still in Pasadena. And I went in and I always loved photography. When I was a little kid, I had a little cardboard box camera with a little viewfinder that you pulled up. It was made out of wire that you pulled up. You took the picture and then you had to crank it to make the next one. It wasn't like an automatic.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. You can't.
You still have that camera?
It cost $1. And if whatever pictures were there, you put the mail on the camera itself, and maybe it was $2. But anyway, sent it back it was nothing. Sent it back to the people who made it. They developed and printed the pictures, and for another $2, you got a camera. Another camera. It was so I started.
What year was that?
This is probably about 69, I would guess.
Okay.
So
you used that same camera?
No, very amateur camera, and took pictures of these kids. Well, I also went to the races. Jinx and I went to the races, and I took a picture of 4 of the leading grass horses at Santa Anita, spread eagled right across the track. It was a beautiful photograph that I look at now. And Jinx said, that's a really good photograph. You got to do something with that. Oh, okay, well, I will. I don't have the ability to sell myself. And so what Jinx said was, you got to do it. You got to do it. Okay, I will. Okay. I wouldn't. And finally, she said, go over the California Thoroughbred, now it's called the California Thoroughbred. It was the Thoroughbred of California. And it was the organ of the Thoroughbred horse breeders in California. And so I took it over to the editor, and this is really kind of funny. I took it over to the editor and said, here's a picture I have. You might be interested in it. Oh, he said, indeed, we would. We'd like to put it on the cover. So the very first picture I took to anybody, taken with this Minolta SRT 101, which wasn't a great camera.
Wonderful.
And so he said, do you have any business cards? And I said, well, not with me, which was true. It was absolutely true. So I said, Jinx, he has to be on the business card. She said, let's go in business. So we went into business and created BLS Enterprises and Photo. Now, here's what's interesting. It comes in.
Okay.
The racetrack was only for men, period. If all the mutual clerks, the people behind the desk, there may have been a few people serving food or something. It was male oriented, and the same way the industry was. In the back east, it was all men grooms, all men everything. And a great race trainer named Charlie Whittingham finally said, women do well with horses. He was a great trainer. Mm-hmm. He said, I'm going to let him be my exercise rider. But that wasn't until mid-70s. So when we started in on this, if you were a man, you could come in and off the racetrack or go into the stable area anytime you wanted.
Really, with your camera or whatever.
Whatever. If you were a woman, you couldn't be on the backside, which is the stable area of the racetrack, before dawn or after dark. Now, Jinx and I were together as life mates not life mates because it wasn't a life, from 70 to about 73. At that point, I won't go into the details, but we were hired to take photographs of the largest and most prestigious thoroughbred dispersal at auction that had ever been held in California. And so, believe it or not, the agent who hired us, hard to believe that this is 1973, in the midst of all this, women are not allowed on the racetrack. He hired Phyllis Lambert and Leanne Howard to run this whole auction. It was unheard of. I mean, it was a horribly muddy year, a lot of rain. They're going to have the richest people from the entire world coming to buy.
Where was that at?
At Hollywood Park.
How did you learn how to take pictures?
By the seat of my pants. We were one of the top 3 thoroughbred photographers in the world.
When you were teaching, were you open as a lesbian?
I was not open until Jinx and I got together, 1970. 1970, And Jinx and I were together from 70 to 73. But by that point, here's one story, to give you an idea. Jinx and I were walking down Colorado Boulevard, which is a main street in Pasadena. This is 1970. And we are holding hands. And a pickup truck with probably at least half a dozen teenage boys drives by slowly, cruising Pasadena, and they see us holding hands, and the guys yell, "Hey, you fucking dykes," and start screaming obscenities at us. This is Jinx, 1970. People didn't do this. She was so she puts her fist in the air and she says, yes, we're fucking dykes. Thank you for noticing. Oh God, we appreciate you noticing. Thank you, thank you. And the guy's like, huh? We just insulted her and it wasn't an insult like that.
So did you like that Jinx was so out?
It was a little scary, but if you can deal with that, if I can, and she was out at UCLA. She was with the Traffic Research and Engineering Department at UCLA. And she was out there, and this is who she was. And if I was going to be with Jinx and I was going to be who I am, then I had to tolerate it.
So what happened with your mother? Did she ever resign herself to the fact that you
Not really, except just before she died. And just before she died, she said to the woman who I was with, who was a horse trainer, a thoroughbred horse trainer, racetrack, Phyllis, mother was just really rude to her. If we went up there for dinner or something, she would hand food to this person or this person, skip Phyllis and go this person and this person. And I didn't have the guts at that point to stand up for her. I later did. The family ostracized me for about 30 some years. They all live right here in LA. All one sister lived in Riverside County. They're all right here. I had nothing to do with them. I knew nothing about what was going on.
That's not unusual.
No, it isn't unusual.
Right.
And shortly before mother died, and Phyllis would make her cookies. We'd buy her clothes because mother got so thin. She had cancer. She got so thin she could, and she was, I might add, she was in a Christian Science convalescent home, if you could imagine such a thing, because they took Medicare money, but you didn't get nurses helping you. And so Phyllis did these wonderful, lovely things for mom. And shortly before mother died, two things happened. One of them was, she said, Wendy, Phyllis is a warm, generous, loving, caring human being. That was all she said. And
so how did you meet Mara Lee?
Okay, she was president of the teachers union. So she came into my faculty lounge. She was trying to get the existing organization, the Pasadena Teachers Association, certified, and the union certified. So there was a big election on this. And so she came around to the various to our faculty meeting to talk, or actually it was lunch, and talk. And one of the people who came with her, who was also, he was like secretary or whatever of the union, I grew up with. So his name was Trooper. And I walked up to Troop and said, hey, Troop. And we started chatting. And I said, Troop, who is that woman? And he said, oh, that's Mary Lee. She's president of the union. And I said, she's a lesbian. He said, no, she's not. She's married and has a kid. And I said, she's a lesbian. He said, well, you know. Later on, Phyllis and I parted company, and I was by myself for a while. And I went to set up school in September, get my classroom, because for me, setting up the classroom was like a good 2 weeks to do bulletin boards, get the books up, get everything done. And so I went in there, and Mary Lee came in. She said, well, there's going to be a big meeting, the usual district meeting. And so do you want to go with me? And I thought, God, here she's the president. She wants me to go with her? Oh, she'll be so busy. Everybody would want to talk to her. Well, we went to this meeting. I met her at the meeting, and she spent the whole time talking to me. And finally, we went out in the car, and it's 9:30, and I was usually in bed by 8:30, and I'm living in West LA, and I was still in Pasadena at 9:30. So we went out in the car, and I said, Mary Lee, if you're not a lesbian, I think you should be. And she said, I am. Pardon?
And I think you should be with me, right?
But I didn't. I just said, I think you should be. And she said, well, I am. I said, well, what's with the husband and the kid then? And then in December, there was a union meeting, a union Christmas party. So I'll just go. And I had to go to therapy, right? I had to leave at a certain time to get to therapy.
Right. So the 70s were big on therapy.
Pardon?
In the 70s, we were all in therapy.
Yeah, exactly. And so I waited for her to show up, didn't show up. And so just as I was leaving to go to therapy, and I wasn't going to be late for that, she comes walking in. So we had a real quick chat, and I said, well, let's get together. She said, I'll call you up and let's have dinner. Okay. Well, she didn't call. And so finally, I thought, this is February. I'm going to call her up and ask her out for dinner. And we've been together ever since. And that's it.
What year was that?
But that was 1985. And we've been together for 36 years.
Do you think lesbians still have to be cautious? in teaching?
No, I don't.
Being out?
You don't need to be.
What would you like to be remembered for in your
What
legacy?
would I like to be remembered for?
Yeah.
Caring about everything that comes into my life, whether it's a silverfish in the bathtub, or the other day I saw a man limping badly on his with his bicycle, pedaling along, and I said, "Wouldn't you like me to push that for you? I'd be happy to put that kind of stuff." That's what
Being
life is
sort of
about.
kind.
Yeah, being
Yeah.
remembered because that I cared, and that's the important thing is I cared, and
That's great.
yeah, but the photography has given me a great opportunity to let people who are in horses in Australia or wherever, in Europe or wherever, see American horses, and they can see what they're like. The photograph I just took of the horses running in the Kentucky Derby on Saturday, his name is Rock Your World. And there's a picture of him coming back after the race, and the jockey has got his arms around the horse's neck reverently after having won the race, and the groom is kissing the horse on the nose. Life is so exciting, and why people don't treat it like that? LA is the most exciting place to be.
Thank you for doing this.
You're very welcome. Thank you for doing it too. And I enjoyed it. And this is just add another fun part of my life.